Two
That was
neighbors, one
incredible.
street,
It
one
tastes even
shared
better, Dad.
misfortune. One family copes on the
Can I have some
seventh
more,
day,
please?
enjoying hot meals, staying warm, with clean water. And another stands in line at a gas station at 3 in the morning, hoping someone will exchange batteries for money. What separates them? Not money, not vast reserves, but just one principle that changes everything. The rule of 820 for survival. If you misunderstand it, every penny spent on preparation will be in vain. Stay with me, because I will show you how 20% of your supplies will help you in 80% of real emergencies. And I promise that what most people focusing on preparation pay attention to doesn't even make it into these 20%. My name is Zach, and I have been training since 2012. At that time, I made every possible mistake. I bought equipment that I never used. He stored supplies that he never used. He spent money on tactical-looking items that didn't help in a critical situation. Over the years, I have learned from my own experience what truly works, not through YouTube videos, but by trial and error, studying real collapses in Venezuela, Argentina, and the Balkans, and experiencing power outages in his area. And here's what I found out. Most of those who prepare for everything are not ready for anything. What do I mean? You've probably heard of the Pareto principle. The Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto noted that 80% of the land in Italy is owned by 20% of the population. Then he looked at his garden and saw that 20% of his pea plants produced 80% of the peas. This pattern is present everywhere. In business, 80% of sales come from 20% of customers. In your closet, you wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. And in preparation, 80% of your chance of survival depends only on 20% of your actions. The problem is that most people do not know which 20% is important. Therefore, they buy everything. 50 different lighters, 18 evacuation backpacks, a decade's worth of dried lasagna. And when the electricity goes out for 3 days, they realize they can't find a flashlight. Their water filter is still in the packaging, and they never learned to cook rice without a rice cooker. This is not preparation. This is shopping. And shopping does not save lives. The focus is on the critical 20%. So let's start with the first 20%, your essential gear. When I talk about gear, I do not mean gadgets. I am talking about a handful of tools that solve real problems in actual emergencies. And here's the truth. Only 5 categories are important: water, fire, light, cutting tools, and weather protection. That's it. Everything else is either excessive or entertaining. Let's start with water. You can live 3 weeks without food, but without water, you will only survive 3 days. In summer heat or with physical exertion, just 1 day. So water is not just important, it's a top priority. You need 2 aspects: storage and purification. For storage, at least 1 gallon per person per day. For a family of 4, that's 28 gallons for 1 week. Glass containers for water are ideal. Large blue containers from a hardware store will also work. Just make sure they are suitable for food use and store them in a dark place. But supplies are not eternal, so purification is needed. I have a Berkey filter at home. It works by gravity, so it doesn't require electricity. It filters thousands of gallons. For portable use, I have Sawyer mini filters in every bag. They filter 99.9%, last for 100,000 gallons, and cost $20. I used it on water from a stream, a pond, and even questionable tap water during a boil water advisory. It worked every time. And here's what many overlook. You need to test your system before you need it. Pour dirty water from your yard into a bucket and filter it. Look at how long this will take. Make sure you can do this when your hands are cold and you're under stress. This is the difference between having gear and having skills. Next is fire, not just for cooking. Although yes, for cooking. But that's secondary. Fire purifies water when your filter breaks. Fire signals rescuers. Fire warms you when heating is turned off in January. Fire has psychological significance. When everything collapses and you sit in the dark, fire reminds you that you still control the situation. So you need a backup system. I have several Bic lighters. They are cheap, reliable, and work in the wind. I keep waterproof matches in a sealed container. And I have a ferrocerium rod in the kit because it works when everything else is wet. But here's the real test. Can you start a fire from wet wood in the rain? Most people practice on sunny days with dry kindling and take pride in themselves. This is not real life. Real life is wet wood, cold hands, the wind blowing in your face, and you have 30 minutes of light left. Train in such conditions. Find birch bark. Learn where the resin tree grows. Keep cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly in a film container. These things really work when conditions are bad. Light is underestimated until it's needed. Your phone flashlight drains in 4 hours. So what? I keep headlamps because working with my hands is important when trying to cook or fix something. LED lamps for illuminating the area. I have a solar panel that charges AA batteries because everything I have runs on them. Standardization is important. Don't keep half of your things on C batteries, half on CR123, and half on rechargeable lithium batteries. You can only charge from a dead laptop. Choose one type of battery and stick to it. Cutting tools are needed. You need a good fixed knife and a multi-tool. That's it. Not a samurai sword or a tactical tomahawk. A knife that can be sharpened, holds its edge, and has been used for real tasks. I've had the same Mora knife for 8 years. It cost $15. I've chopped wood, opened cans, cut ropes, and cleaned fish with it. It's not perfect for Instagram, but it works. And Leatherman, because sometimes you need pliers or a screwdriver, and a knife is not suitable for that. The last category is protection from the weather. This is clothing, and most people completely ignore it. They think about food and water and forget that hypothermia kills faster than hunger. You will need base layers for cold weather, waterproof outer layers for rain, a good hat since most heat escapes through the head, gloves that allow for free hand use, and spare socks. Spare socks are always important. Wet feet lead to blisters. Blisters can lead to infection. Infection can result in the inability to move. In a collapse situation, this can become a death sentence. So, these are your essential 20% of gear. Water filtration, fire starting, light sources, cutting tools, weather protection. If you master these 5 skills, you will already be ahead of 95% of people when disaster strikes. Everything else is rather pleasant additions. These 5 are necessary, but equipment without skills is just expensive items. This leads us to the second critically important 20%. Skills. And here's the surprising part. Skills can't be stolen. They don't break. They don't need batteries. Once you master them, they will stay with you forever. So what skills are the most important? Starting a fire in real conditions. I've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. Most people can start a fire with a lighter on a sunny day. That's not enough. You need to be able to do this in the rain on wet wood when you are cold and tired. I practice this on purpose. Going out in bad weather, I check if I can start a fire. And you will be surprised how difficult it is until you try it several times. Learn to identify natural materials for kindling. Birch bark peels off easily and burns even when wet. Pine resin wood ignites easily from a spark. The fluff of bulrush plants burns well if kept dry. These are the things you will find in nature when your purchased lighters run out. Searching for and purifying water. A filter is good, but what if it breaks? Can you boil water? Do you know how long to boil it? 1 minute at sea level? 3 minutes at altitude. Can you collect rainwater? Do you know how to dig a well to find underground water? Can you distinguish clean water sources from contaminated ones? These questions are not theoretical. In a real emergency, your water bottle will run out quickly. Knowing where to find help and how to make it safe is the #1 survival skill. Basics of first aid, not just a band-aid, but real skills for injuries. Can you stop severe bleeding? Do you know when to use a tourniquet and when not to? Can you fix a broken bone? Treat a burn. Perform CPR. In a collapse, you can't call for an ambulance. You are the one who provides first aid. I took a wilderness first aid course a few years ago. These were the best money I have ever spent. It's not just about knowing what to do. It's important to stay calm when someone is bleeding and panicking. This is a skill you can't learn from a book. Navigation. If the GPS fails, can you use a map and compass? Do you know how to find north without them? The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Moss grows on the north side of trees. Well, sort of. Actually, it grows on the shadiest side, which is usually north, but not always. The essence is that you need backup navigation, and it must be practiced before your phone dies and you get lost. Awareness of the situation. This is a skill that no one teaches, but everyone needs. It is the ability to sense the atmosphere in a room, notice exits, watch who is observing you, and anticipate tension before it escalates into violence. I learned this while living in a difficult area. An instinct develops when something is not right, and this instinct helps to avoid trouble before it arises. Enter any space and immediately identify 2 exits. Watch the hands, not the faces. If the crowd looks tense, leave. Don't wait for what will happen next. These 5 skills, fire starting in real conditions, water sourcing, first aid, navigation, situational awareness. They can be learned for free. They cannot be stolen, and they will save your life when your gear fails. Now let's talk about the third important aspect. And this aspect may seem uncomfortable because most prepared people do not like it. The most important thing in preparation is not your equipment or skills. It is your mind. Psychology is what separates survivors from victims, and most people do not train their minds at all. That's why it's important. You may have all the food and water, but if you panic when the situation worsens, none of it will help. I saw this firsthand. During a power outage a few years ago, some neighbors remained calm. They lit candles, cooked on a camping stove, and played with the children. Others, by 2 o'clock, began to lose control. They were agitated, arguing, and making poor decisions. The same situation, different approaches, different results. So what does a survivor's mentality include? First, adaptation to stress. You need to intentionally step out of your comfort zone before it becomes necessary. Go hiking in bad weather, spend 24 hours without food, enter a crowded place and force yourself to look for exits. Make your brain work in discomfort. Because the first time you feel real fear shouldn't be in a life and death situation. I conduct power outage training with my family twice a year. We turn off the main circuit breaker and live without electricity for 48 hours. It's not fun, but that's the point. We learn what works and what doesn't. We find the weak spots in our plan, and when a real situation happens, you'll already be prepared. Secondly, decision-making under pressure. In a crisis, you don't have time to consider all options. You need to act, so train yourself now. Play the what-if game. If the electricity goes out for 3 days, what is your plan? If you can't get home, where will you go? If someone breaks in at night, what will you do? Go through these scenarios in your mind. Make decisions in advance so that when it happens, your brain switches to autopilot. Third, control your emotions. Fear is contagious. If you lose control, your family will start to panic too. I learned to use breathing techniques when I feel stressed. 4 seconds of inhaling, a 4-second pause, 4 seconds of exhaling, a 4-second pause, repeat. It helps calm your nervous system, and it works. I use this before difficult conversations, in emergencies, whenever I feel panic rising. Fourth, detachment from normal life. This is the most difficult aspect. We are conditioned to believe that everything will return to normal. Electricity will come back. The store will restock. Help will come. But this hope can kill you. While you wait for life to return to normal, the situation worsens. The survivors quickly switch gears. They accept the new reality and adapt. They stop waiting for salvation and start solving problems. And thirdly, a purpose is needed. You need a reason to keep moving forward. For me, it's my family. I prepare so that my children do not feel fear, so that my wife does not worry. This is my meaning. And when it gets hard, this is what drives me forward. If you have no reason, the routine exhausts you. So find yours. Now, the mood is not something soft. It is the foundation of everything else. Develop it now, because when everything collapses, the real battle will unfold in your mind. Now let's change the subject and talk about food and water, because it is here that most people preparing for a crisis spend the most money. They panic buy what they know rather than what they really need. Then they wonder why their family won't eat frozen food in a real emergency. This is the reality. You don't need gourmet dishes, you need calories, you need food that stores well, is easy to prepare, and doesn't require refrigeration. So, what makes up 20% of food that gives 80% of the result? Start with rice. White rice, not brown. Brown rice contains oils that spoil quickly. Properly stored white rice lasts up to 30 years. It is inexpensive and calorie-dense. 1 cup of uncooked rice contains over 700 calories. It is versatile, eaten plain, mixed with beans, or fried with anything. This is the basis for food storage. Beans and lentils, dried rather than canned. Canned beans are convenient but mostly consist of water. You pay for the weight and take up space. Dried beans stored in bags with oxygen absorbers can last for decades. They contain protein, fiber, and are very filling. If you combine rice and beans, you get complete protein. You can literally live on just these 2 foods: oatmeal for breakfast, pasta for variety, canned protein sources like tuna, chicken, or Spam. I know that Spam sounds unpleasant, but it's a long-lasting meat that remains edible for years and provides fats and calories when you need them. Also, peanut butter, dry milk, broth cubes for flavor, and spices. Don't underestimate spices. When you eat the same foods every day, a little cumin or chili powder significantly boosts morale. And that's what most people forget. You need to refresh your food supplies every 6 months, cook with the supplies you have, and replace them with fresh products. So you will always use what you have, and be sure that your family will actually eat it. I learned this from my own experience. I remembered many wheat grains, thinking that I would grind them into flour. Then I realized that I had never used a mill and did not know how to do it. So this wheat just lay idle in my basement. Now I only keep what I actually cooked. By the way, I know that storing food can seem daunting, especially when you're just starting, so I prepared a free guide for you. This guide is called How to Turn $50 into Food Supplies for 90 Days. It presents the exact shopping contents I use, specific brands, prices, 37 products most people never think of when stocking up, simple storage methods suitable for any home or apartment, and emergency meals that can be prepared without gas or electricity. This is absolutely free. I will leave a link in the description. Just take it, and you will have a proven plan that you can use today. Now let's talk about how to prepare this food, as it is useless if you cannot heat it up. Can you cook if the electricity is turned off? Most people cannot. They have an electric stove, a microwave, and no backup plan. So when the power goes out, they eat cold canned beans. This is unsustainable. You need a backup cooking method. I have a camping stove with propane canisters. It's small, portable, and easy to use. I also have a rocket stove. You can build it yourself or buy it for $30. It burns branches and small twigs. Very efficient, requires little fuel, and in the long term, when the propane runs out, the rocket stove will allow you to cook endlessly. But here's the point. Test your system. Every month I prepare a full meal using only my backup equipment, without electricity, without a gas stove, only my camping stove or rocket stove. And I measure time because in a real emergency, you don't want to find out it takes you an hour to boil water when you only have 20 minutes of daylight left. Keep everything simple. Rice, beans, oatmeal, pasta, canned proteins, peanut butter, spices, 1 gallon of water per person per day. A way to filter more, and a method to cook without electricity. This is your 20% that meets 80% of your needs. Now the fifth important 20th part is energy. And here, people often lose their heads. They think they need to recreate their modern lifestyle. The refrigerator is running, lights are on in every room, the TV is on, the coffee maker is working. And that is a mistake, because 80% of the energy you think you need is a luxury disguised as necessity. In a real power outage, what do you really need? Medical devices if someone in your family depends on them. Communication, lighting, that's all. Your refrigerator consumes a lot of energy. In 2 days, most of the food inside will spoil anyway. Let it go. Focus on what helps you survive, stay informed, and function. Medical devices should be prioritized. If someone needs a sleep machine, oxygen, or insulin, that is your main energy priority. Nothing else matters until these needs are met. Acquire a solar generator or a battery pack of suitable size for this load and conduct regular tests. Communication. A hand crank radio will help you stay informed about evacuation orders, weather conditions, and events in your area. The lack of information means a lack of informed decisions, and that is dangerous. I have a small emergency radio that runs on AA batteries or with a hand crank. It cost me $25. It saved me several times during storms when I needed to know if a tornado was approaching. The lighting. LEDs are incredibly efficient. A small portable battery can power a flashlight for several days. The solar garden lights brought into the house work perfectly. You don't need to light up the whole house, just illuminate the room you are in and use blackout curtains. Visible light at night tells everyone that you have energy. It becomes a target. I use a Jackery solar generator for charging. It's not cheap, but it can power my household appliances for several days. Phone, radio, lighting, laptop, if needed. And with solar panels, I can recharge it endlessly. But here's what I don't do. I am not trying to run the refrigerator, television, or air conditioner. These devices consume a lot of energy. In a crisis, comfort takes a backseat to survival. Moreover, generators are noisy. If you run a gasoline generator at night, everyone within half a mile knows you have fuel and electricity. It's unsafe. Solar panels operate silently, so do battery packs. Stealth is important. Simplify your needs. Focus on medical needs, communication, lighting, and small electronics. These are the 20% of energy that satisfy 80% of your real needs. Everything else is a distraction. The sixth category is community. And this is what makes many prepared people feel uncomfortable, because many of us are solitary by nature. We do not trust others. We want to act alone. And I understand this. But here is the truth. In a real crisis, the solitary one perishes. Those who survive are those who have a small circle of trusted people. You don't need the police. You don't need 20 people. You need 2 or 3 people who remain calm in a difficult situation, share your values, and possess skills you lack. Maybe it's the mechanic from the street, the nurse from the neighboring house, or the person who always has tools and knows how to use them. These are the ones who cover for you while you sleep, who share information, who help solve problems you can't solve on your own. To be honest, creating a community is not easy. People panic, steal, make bad decisions. But if you built relationships before disaster struck, you created a protection that most prepared people lack. And this protection is the difference between survival and death. Start now. Engage in quiet conversations. Discover who is paying attention. Exchange tools. Teach someone a skill. Become someone people trust. Because in times of crisis, trust becomes currency. The closer your circle, the safer you feel. Do not forget about digital communication. In some areas, encrypted messengers or even radio networks have become lifelines. You may not be able to rely on your entire neighborhood, but 5 prepared individuals connected throughout the city and exchanging information can significantly change the situation. Community is not just neighbors. It's those you can rely on when things get serious. Now let's talk about the 7th category, planning. Because most prepared people make one of 2 fatal mistakes. Either they try to plan for every possible situation and fail, or they get fixated on one specific disaster and find themselves defenseless when something else happens. Both paths lead to the same result: chaos. But experienced, prepared people know the following. You don't need a plan for every possible situation. You need a plan for the most likely 80% of emergencies. These situations can be divided into several main categories: natural disasters, infrastructure failures, civil unrest, economic crises, and medical emergencies. These 5 categories cover most threats you may encounter. Instead of planning for a zombie apocalypse or alien invasion, ask yourself what is most likely in your area and what could cause the biggest problems. If you live in Florida, hurricanes are likely. If in California, earthquakes and wildfires. If there are civil disturbances and infrastructure failures in the city. Plan based on real threats, not Hollywood scenarios. Here's the key thought. Don't plan for events. Plan for possibilities. Can you stay in shelter for 2 weeks without electricity? Can you evacuate in 10 minutes in an emergency? Can you purify water, cook without electricity, keep warm without heating? These skills will help in various situations. You don't need a separate plan for a hurricane, flood, or riot. You need one reliable plan that covers the basic needs: water, food, shelter, energy, security, and mobility. If you manage these 20%, you will be ahead of 95% of people when the real crisis occurs. Now let's discuss the last few critically important aspects, the 20% that most people completely ignore: medical supplies, communication, and psychological preparation for long-term scenarios. As for medical supplies, most people have a basic first aid kit, Band-Aids, Neosporin, perhaps some pain relievers. This is not enough. You need first aid tools, tourniquets, chest sealants, Israeli bandages for stopping severe bleeding, burn dressings, splints, and medications. Stock up on over-the-counter remedies your family uses: pain relievers, antihistamines, antidiarrheals, and cough syrups. In times of crisis, pharmacies are quickly looted, and a simple infection can become life-threatening if medical help is not available. I also keep a printed medical guide because I won't rely on my memory in an emergency. I need step-by-step instructions for treating wounds, fractures, shock, and hypothermia. Knowledge is important, but a manual is even better. As for communication, aside from your area, most people think of personal meetings or radios, but in the event of a large-scale disaster, the ability to communicate beyond your immediate surroundings is of great importance. Ham radio communication is the gold standard. This requires a license and some knowledge, but it allows communication with people hundreds of kilometers away, receiving updates, sharing information, and coordinating actions. If you are serious about preparation, get a radio communication license. If this seems too complicated, at least acquire a quality 2-way radio with an extended range. Make sure your main group uses the same device to be able to communicate. As for psychological preparation for long-term scenarios, it differs from short-term thinking. Short-term is about staying calm in a crisis situation. Long-term is about endurance, because a 3-day power outage is one thing, but a 3-month crisis is something entirely different. You need routines, structure, something to give your days meaning when there is no work, school, or familiar schedule. Read books, play games, work on projects. These activities will help occupy your mind and prevent despair. It is also important to include flexibility in your preparations. Do not assume you will stay home. Develop an evacuation plan. And do not think that evacuation is the only option. Prepare a plan to stay in place. Real life is unpredictable. The more flexible you are, the easier it is to adapt to changes. And one more thing, do not flaunt your supplies. Operational security matters. Neighbors should not know that you have food supplies for 6 months. Your colleagues must not know that you can purify water. Keep it a secret. Because in case of a crisis, those who know about your readiness may come to you for help, or worse, demand it. So, let's summarize. The rule of 80-20 states that 80% of your survival success depends on 20% of your supplies. These 20% are the essential gear: water filtration, fire, light, cutting tools, skills for weather protection, ability to start a fire, find water, first aid, navigation, situational awareness, the right mindset, stress management, decision-making, emotional control, letting go of the usual routine, having a goal, food and water, rice, beans, oatmeal, canned protein, a way to cook without electricity, 1 gallon of water per person per day, energy, medical devices, communication, lighting, small electronics, a community of 2 or 3 reliable people who will always support you.